Hey, Stay Sharp group, just wanted to make this video because I got another question in this week, which was all about how do I know I have a good idea? And an idea is really nothing without any execution. And that execution could be wrong if you haven't validated your idea. Now, I really love this topic because I think this is this is a situation where a lot of people think, oh, I've got a good idea. Let me spend the next 6 months researching and building and then they launch and there's crickets. And I'm speaking 100% from experience because I've done this before, not once, but not twice, probably like 3 times. The number one example that stands out is our Coffee Buddy app. We wanted to launch an app that helped people save money on their daily addiction and consumption of coffee. And the idea on paper was amazing. We built basically an app that solved a problem that we wanted. Not only did we build it on iPhone, we also built it on Android and spent quite a lot of money and time building this app. And then when we took it to market, meaning we went and met cafe owners, they started picking the idea apart and what if this and what if that? And then we went, wow, that's really good points. We'll get back to you. And getting back to you was running the hell out of there in embarrassment. And we shut that idea down and realized that if we were going to build what cafe owners actually wanted and what coffee drinkers actually wanted, we would have to start the idea from scratch. So that was cheaper than a university degree, and I call it the school of life. But that is an example of where an idea needs to be we executed. So we took the idea to execution, we put money behind it, we put hours behind it, but we were executing the wrong idea. This was a long time ago and before the wide adoption of the internet and social groups and so forth. But now what's really exciting is I wouldn't really launch any business idea these days unless I've validated the idea. And by validating the idea, is simply by like putting a post up on Facebook and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing X. Would anyone be interested? Now, I did this with my podcast. So again, I can talk from experience. Before I launched my podcast, I put a post up and somewhere on the internet, you'd probably still be able to find it. And I said, I've got this idea of starting a podcast. Now, the biggest problem I had back then was who was I going to interview? And so I asked everyone to give me ideas of who I should reach out to interview on my podcast. And within hours, I had 28 guest ideas or something like that, 20 something guest ideas. And I was almost a little bit overwhelmed. And I thought, wow, there's these people who want to be on a podcast, they'll pick in themselves or tag in other business people to be on my podcast. I had no idea what the name was going to be. I had no website. I had no idea what the format of the show was going to be, apart from this idea of a podcast and would this have any legs? And because I got so much traction on that post where it was just at an idea level, I then started digging deeper. And then I put a bit of a framework together and then I went back to market and I said, this is my podcast. What are questions I should ask my guests? And then I'll let the community give me the questions. And what's really good about this is that your community gets buy-in to your idea and they help you build what they want to listen to. And so the questions that I started asking on my podcast were questions that my network, people I was connected to on Facebook and Instagram and all that, were people who were going to be my listeners. And so I was building a product that they wanted. If I was selling a product, the only thing that I would do differently is put a paid wall or an example of a paid wall. Now, a paid wall is just basically like a checkpoint where people need to actually get their credit card out. So there's a lot of examples where people will brainstorm an idea and everyone's like, yes, amazing, love it, do it. And then they do it and they say, okay, well, now pay me $20 for it. And everyone's like, oh, well, I don't know if it's worth $20. Or it might be, $2,000, or it might be, a subscription service. I'm not sure what it might be. But as soon as you ask someone to pay for your service, that is true validation. That is when people are actually going to take their credit card out and vote with their wallet. And so if you can set up a beta group, I did this with my podcasting course. I didn't know whether people wanted to be taught how to start a podcast. So I put together a very lean process And a lot of the principles that I do take with this process is from the Lean Startup. And so feel free to dig deeper and learn about the Lean Startup methodology. But it's about putting something out and creating a feedback loop. And I asked if anyone was interested in being part of a mastermind group to help you launch your podcast. And I had probably about 15, 16 people put their hand up and say that they were interested. I booked a 15 to 20 minute strategy call with them, asked them questions about their podcast, how serious they were to launch, and then said, awesome, well, I'm running a beta mastermind. It's going to be every Thursday at 6 or 7 p.m. for 8 weeks or 6 weeks. I ended up extending it to 8 because there was so much content. And it's $197. And out of those 13 people, 10 signed up, 7 showed up, and 5 launched their podcast. And last week, the letter's over there, I got a little gift in the mail from one of my podcast students who said, the podcast is going amazing, just to something little to say thank you for all your work. And this is like nearly a year and a half later since I did that. So the key messages here is idea is great, execution is what makes ideas come to life, but if you're executing an unvalidated idea, then you're wasting time, effort, and money. And it's very easy these days to follow a lean startup methodology. One of the kind of textbook examples of this is Dropbox. When they took their idea to investors, they had absolutely no idea how the technology was going to work. So they, I guess, photoshopped or edited a video together that mimicked what their idea was and said, you're going to drag a folder here, and then miraculously on this other computer, that folder is going to sync and it's going to be there thanks to the internet. And they had no idea on how they were going to do that, but the concept had it was a good idea. They took it to investors, and then investors invested based on the fact that they now had a gap in the market that they could fill, and now there's been many businesses that copy this cloud storage and cross-device what's the word? Synchronization or something. And so that's my key points. Like, it's very easy to throw up a paid wall. A paid wall could literally be, here's a PayPal link, give me some money, and I'll let you know when I launch. And if people are willing to give you money, then that's a true validated business idea. So hopefully that answers your questions. That's how you know you're on a good idea. Don't get false validation. Unfortunately, your family, your mum, your dad, your parents, your siblings, they're going to validate the idea as being absolutely amazing and that you should go for it. But they're probably the least likely people to actually pay for your service. So it's not true validation. So hopefully that really helps you know if you're on a good idea. If you do have a good idea, share it in the community. I'd love to know what you're working on. And the community sometimes can give you early day validation, and definitely keen for you to go and check out the lean startup methodology and see how you can start something really lean with a broken prototype that validates what you're doing. So awesome. Hopefully that helps. I know it will help. So take care, and thanks for the questions, and let them keep rolling in. Until next time, stay sharp.